Welcome to another episode of Red and Black, where your conservatism is not just the color that you're used to. I'm Lenny McAllister, and I don't usually make a whole lot of promises, but I'm going to promise you one thing, or actually two things, this episode, that these three people will not either resign or be resigned to any particular position. Although I already have one person, Miss Show Off in the corner, that's already trying to skirt out on us because she got more important things to do. Kara,
Sorry.
what's more important than hanging with us?
Well, I'm sorry, you guys, but as we're recording today, I actually have gotten a better offer from a better-looking guy. I'm going to be on Fox News tonight with Lawrence Jones, so I'm going to have to scoot out here really soon so I can get in my car and get in that lovely California traffic, because California's back, which means so is the traffic.
Well, first of all, you scared us all for a second, because when you said you got in touch with a better looking guy, I thought this was a Mr. Davis thing, and I thought we just wished you a happy anniversary, and I was going to shut my ears. I didn't want to hear anything.
No, Mr. Davis knows what's up.
Oh, okay. So you're talking like a better looking co-host, i.e. you're throwing shade at me.
Naturally. And no shade. I mean, we've all seen Lawrence Jones. He's a fine specimen, and it's no shame to say you're coming in second to him.
Well,
this show feels like it's already getting off track.
Actually, I'm coming in third because the fine specimen of the show is the dude with the naturally curly hair, Jeff Charles. You're not resigning or being resigned on this show, are you, Jeff?
Not quite, but if I do, then it'll be in 14 days. And I will deny no wrongdoing, because in my heart of hearts, everything I did I thought was on the up and up, and for some reason things have changed nowadays, and I guess I just didn't keep up.
You didn't know that grabbing girls' butts is taboo these days, and who would know?
We used to do it all the time. They loved it.
Yeah, they loved it.
It was a famous philosopher back in the early 90s that once said, "I love big butts and I cannot lie."
Oh my God.
What happened to that philosophy? That was something that went from coast to coast as something that people can believe in. And that was even before, Wild Bill Clinton got into the White House, or he just got into the White House. Speaking of which, can I go to the guy that put out the tweet that says, and I quote, talking about shade, the tweet that said, "I'm not a pervert, I'm just Italian." Dr. Christopher Metzler, which I just backed away from that because that was holy shade. And would you like to explain that, please? Because you're a smart guy. Where did that come from?
I think it was something that, in fact, Cuomo would say. My only thing about that is, with apologies to perverts and Italians everywhere, I'm just saying.
You've said enough. There you go. And you told me that you'll have a decision in 14 days on what you're going to do. So away you go. Let me talk to you first, because although you insulted me, you're the prettiest of the four of us. So we're going to let you talk first. Everybody said, including Jeff Charles, that they didn't necessarily see Cuomo resigning. And then lo and behold, here we sit. Let me get your feedback first and foremost, Kara.
Yeah, well, I think that what we're seeing here is Democrats on the rope across the nation, because just a couple days ago, Gavin Newsom gave the most bizarre interview I've ever seen the man give to the Sacramento Bee. He's clearly on the ropes. He's clearly faltering. He's clearly very upset. And it's my suspicion. And by the way, I was with Jeff on this. I didn't think Cuomo would ever resign. And a lot of pundits I know said the same thing. If I couple Cuomo's situation this week with what we saw from Newsom this week, I'm starting to get the idea that the Democrat powers that be in DC or wherever they inhabit space in this country have told these guys that they got to cut them loose. 2022 polling is really starting to roll in, and it's not looking good for Democrats. That's why they're pushing so hard to move very quickly with their agenda, because after 2022, they're probably not going to have the same opportunity. And so I think that they're looking at the writing on the wall and probably making some communications on the back ends here going, you guys, we're done with you. You are too much of a liability. We can't tie ourselves to your sinking ship anymore. We've got enough sinking poll numbers. I think that's what happened with Cuomo. I just think that the top of the party just cut him off and said, look, you've got no more support from us. And I think that's what I saw coming from Gavin Newsom this weekend too.
Dr. Metzler, does that mean that the Democrats have to fear that the House of Representatives is going to flip in 2022? Does that mean that they feel as though some of the gubernatorial races that they think they should win, that they're on the hook for possibly not winning based on what Kira was saying?
Yeah, I mean, Kira's absolutely right. That's the situation here. Because in fact, don't blame Republicans for taking Cuomo down. Blame the Democrats. They are in control, and they basically said to him, buddy, you got to get out of here. You have no votes. You have no support. And by the way, the incoming governor, interesting, she already has scandal related to her husband and some casino dealings. So watch for that to come out as well. In addition to which, she's most likely to be primaried by Letitia James in 2024.
So, Jeff, here we go again, right? So we have politicians that one comes in with a scandal, one goes out with a scandal, and then the one that comes in already has a ready-made scandal. Voters are getting fed up with this.
Yeah, I think so. But at the same time, we still vote for these people, don't we? Now, I will say, I mean, I will give the Democrats credit on this one. I mean, first off, I was surprised that he decided to step down. I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought they were going to have to drag him out of there kicking and screaming. And I would give them credit because they were willing to do it. From all indications suggested that they were willing to remove him from office. I think that is the reason he stepped down. It turns out that Chris Cuomo, his brother, who has been advising him this whole time while masquerading as a journalist, he basically said, you can't win this. Like, if they're going to come and impeach you, you won't be able to stand up to this. So I think Cuomo got to the point to where he realized that there was no. But here's the thing, whatever happens with the lieutenant governor who's taking over, it's going to be the last that we see from him. Because from what I've seen of him, he's the type that would be tone deaf and narcissistic enough to try to get back into political office, whether it's running for governor again or seeking higher office. I don't think it would be successful, but will he be a spoiler of sorts? When is he going to come back? Because I know he's not going to stay gone.
Well, hold on. It's an interesting point that you bring up there. Because it's New York, Kira, right? And I know you got to go do your Fox thing and be hoi polloi or whatever, but just hang around for just a second. We saw Anthony Weiner run for mayor of New York City, and he was catching momentum. That's what people miss, right, Kara? He was actually catching momentum, and then, oops, ham was in the cookie jar or someplace else once again.
Bill Clinton is Bill Clinton. I mean, that guy got caught doing what we all know he got caught doing, but then some. And it looks even now with the Me Too movement sort of exposing his prior bad behavior that people were willing to excuse, even with credible accusations of rape, even with the revelation that he was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane and went to his island 29 times. The left still loves Bill Clinton. They still trot out Bill Clinton. So there's no consequences for bad behavior on the left unless it comes from the people. So Jeff's absolutely right. This probably won't be the last we'll see of Cuomo as far as the entertainment sector is concerned. I do believe this is probably the last we'll see of Cuomo as an official politician.
Does Andrew Cuomo, hey, I can't even say it because it's going to sound so bad, but Dr. M, does Andrew Cuomo land at CNN with Chris Cuomo as a pundit that gives analysis. I mean, look, when Rick Santorum stuck his foot in his mouth with Catholics from Michigan on through to Pennsylvania, everybody thought Rick Santorum was going to go away. And then he had a career at CNN for 8 years after 2012. I mean, we have seen people emerge as pundits and make good money that you thought would go away to an island, not Jeffrey Epstein's island, but some island somewhere and be gone. Is Cuomo going to land in an MSNBC or a CNN, or do you think he's going to be somebody that's going to try to stay behind the scenes? Or do you think he's going to try to wait a couple of years and then run for a Senate seat in the New York State?
Well, I don't think he'll end up at CNN, but do understand that Rachel Maddow's contract is up in a year. Her negotiations have gone nowhere, and she has indicated that she's willing to jump ship. As a result of that, he may, I think it's probably more likely he ends up at MSNBC and not CNN, and he may end up in Rachel's spot.
Jeff, could you tolerate that if that's the case? I mean, I'm looking at your face.
I don't watch it, so I don't care. As a matter of fact, if he did take over for her, I probably would watch MSNBC just to laugh. I mean, that'd be hilarious. I
think Cuomo is like, I'm with Jeff. I think that would be fun to watch. It might be the first time in a long time I've actually purposefully turned on MSNBC. But Cuomo, I think, will have the same problem that Kamala has. Once he's devoid of an issue like COVID, which I think he really genuinely hoped was going to propel him to the presidency, there's no there. He's a terrible person, and he sounds like a terrible person when he talks. COVID got all people feeling all kind of ways because of Trump and all that stuff. But I guarantee you put Andrew Cuomo on a news show and he's got to talk for longer than 30 minutes at a time, you're going to see some real like Biden-esque moments from him where you're just like, what? So I'm actually, you know what? That actually sounds like a good idea.
People hold on. What we've learned over the last 5 years, folks, is the fact that people like strong New York type of personalities that's going to stand up to the other side and throw some sharp bows. I mean, Donald Trump didn't come with policy chops. He came with moxie. If Andrew Cuomo doubles down on the New York moxie, because think about it, one of the things that had his poll numbers going up during the spring of 2020 was the fact that he was seen as the New Yorker that was kind of throwing a couple back at the president. Couldn't that possibly give him some room to grow, Dr. M, at an MSNBC? Or do you really think Kara says is he's just going to fall on his face?
No. What is he going to come up with? Actually, Kara gave him more credit than I would in terms of time. After 5 minutes, what is he going to be able to say? In addition to which, I want to know the Emmy that he got. Are they going to take it back? I mean, these are very important things.
Oy vey, you bring up. Look, let me bring up something else before Kira has to get out of here. Okay, I want to bring up Ben Crump, and I'm going to start with Jeff because it was Jeff's tweet that kind of went after this. But this is kind of the silly story of the week in one regard. But I this is truly, wokeism want to run amok. And I don't usually say that phrase. That's usually resigned to you and you in the corner. I'm not the one that says that. But Jeff, you first and Kara before we let you go. The whole Ben Crump situation with Minnesota renaming the master bedroom the main bedroom or this, that, and the other. I heard of people talking about doing this, but I never thought somebody that's being seen as a civil rights leader, which you can contend Ben Crump being a civil rights leader in and of itself, but for him to kind of take the podium and say words matter and these are the words I'm going to make matter, kind of Bizarro Land Part 7658, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually not that hard on Ben Crump. I'm a little bit more lenient on him than a lot of other conservatives are. I don't apply the term grifter to him because I think he really believes in what he's doing. I disagree with a lot of the stuff that he says, a lot of the divisive stuff that he says. I have sharp disagreements, but I do think that he believes he's actually trying to work towards the good. And like Kira always points out, you can't complain about Ben Crump when there aren't any conservatives trying to get into that space. That being said, this guy was celebrating the fact that Minnesota, they're phasing out the use of the term master bedroom. And like you, Lenny, I had heard about people talking about this in the past. So, but to me, it's funny on its face, but it reflects a deeper reality that is not funny. And it is the fact that progressives, especially white progressives, like to make it seem like they're doing something for the Black community. They like to make it seem like they care about the Black community, but all they're doing is stuff that doesn't mean anything. Changing the name of master bedroom does not work towards closing racial disparities when it comes to income, wealth, education. It doesn't do anything about police brutality. It does nothing to help elevate the Black community. It's a stupid symbolic gesture that signifies nothing, but it's something that they can dangle in front of them and say, hey, look, Black people, this is what we're doing. And you know what? Black progressives are just as bad because they are complicit. They are doing for white progressives what a lot of Black conservatives do for white conservatives, and it's pandering, it's tap dancing, it's helping them cover for the fact that they're not actually doing anything to help the Black community.
Kira, I mean, I don't know what else you can add to that, but please try. Go right ahead.
No, I mean, I'm in total agreement. I think that this is the easy thing to do. I mean, listen. We're all Black on this show. We all have Black families. I've been raising 2 Black kids for near 20 years here. I have not spoken to a single Black person living in poverty, worrying about where their kid's going to go to school, worrying about getting a good job, worrying about the price of gas, worrying about their electricity going out. I have not talked to a single Black person who gives a rat's ass what we call the big bedroom in your house. You know, this is so ridiculous. And it is funny to laugh at, but the truth is that underneath there's this insidious sense of do nothingness. And it's just like, we'll talk about this stuff because these stories make the news, but we don't have any real solutions because they know that they don't have any real solutions. They know the real solutions lie in the unpopular things for their side. You know what a real solution would be to segregation and unequal education? School choice. You know, that has been proven time and time again. You know what a real solution would be for the poverty we experience in inner city communities that are largely Black? Maybe better representation, maybe lower taxes, maybe better job training programs. None of that's sexy enough, though. You know, this is the stuff that's gonna make it onto our front pages because we're all laughing about it, or some people idiotically applauding it. But the other stuff where people got to dig in and wade in and do the hard work every day of loving people and serving people, they have no interest in it. That's why I'm not a Democrat anymore. That's why I left liberalism years ago, and it's why I can never go back. They have no solutions. They only have these petty little theater pieces, that the theater productions that they want to put on. So the rest of us go, oh, yay, look, they really care. I don't know one single person, white or Black, but especially Black, who gives a rip what you call the big bedroom in your house. We all call it a master bedroom. And by the way, Lenny, if we're going to do this, are we going to just do this forever for every word? You know, I went to a racial reconciliation sermon at a church months ago, and the white pastor was valiantly leading his church through this program. I don't want to make that seem funny, but he told this story about how he had some friends over for Christmas, and he had a wreath, and the wreath had cotton in it. And his Black friend said, I want you to take that wreath down. It offends me. And he said, well, you know, as a pastor.
Hold on. Wait a minute. You do realize that the white stuff in the wreath, I know that you Californians think it's cotton. That's called snow. Did you explain that to him? Because I mean,
didn't
and Dr.
know.
Metzler, you from Grenada, don't sit there and act like you know what snow is either. You
I
be quiet
didn't know.
down there. That's snow. Go ahead.
No, this was cotton, and so the pastor said, "Well, of course I took it down because you have to be willing to accommodate people's sensitivity." I know. Me, the lone Black person sitting in this church, going, "What?" and and I thought, and there are plenty of Black people. You can talk to plenty of Black people who will be like, "Oh, there's a piece of cotton over there as decoration. That's offensive," and it's like, what are the clothes you wear made of? Where do you use the word master? Just because master was a term that was used during a certain time period doesn't mean that it has no neutral value. It is a word. I would like to master the art of punditry. How far are we going to let this go? This is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, first of all, you've already mastered the art of punditry. That's why you're going to go do your Hoi Floyd thing in a couple minutes. Number two, there's a certain Seinfeld episode. If you can't use the word master, you are not going to be able to get through that episode. So I know we shouldn't have spoilers here, but just for those of you that
look it up, Seinfeld, master of your domain.
La 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 la. Dr. Metzler. What do people like this go through when they go through the daggone grocery aisle and there's toilet paper named Cottonelle? Do they freak out? Do they grab it? Do they say that it's racist to name it that? What exactly do they do?
This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. So they're going through and they're like, "Oh, no, they're by the damn Cottonelle." Okay?
Right.
So all of this stuff about master, and as Kira said,
and by the way, hold on, Dr. M. They would buy the Cottonelle, and you missed your time to say, and they would sit their ass down. And that would have been completely appropriate. But I'm going to leave that alone.
Yeah, but in addition to which, look, some Black folks are just lucky they have a bedroom. Okay, people, the master bedroom. Who gives a shit? It's just this is the most.
Giving that S, was that a playoff for Cottonelle?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, as Jeff would say, this woke theology is simply just off the rails.
All right, so
and the thing is, I'm sorry, Black people don't care about any of this. No Black person hears the word master bedroom and says, "Oh, that reminds me of slavery." You have this.
Wait a minute.
Hold on. Before Kira goes,
highly sensitive and want to be coddled all the time, like that pastor. I want to say to that pastor, get some new Black friends, because the vast majority of Black people wouldn't care that you had some freaking cotton on your damn Christmas tree. It's absurd. But that they want to make it sound like most Black people are so easily offended by this stuff. They infantilize us and they make us sound like we're just so mentally weak that we can't handle the idea of hearing the word master. It's all right. I'm done.
Jeff, again, number one, it wasn't cotton, it's snow. It's snow. You freaking Californians and people from the islands, that cold white stuff is snow. That's what happened.
After February here in Texas, I know what snow is.
That's ice. That's a different story.
Well, and it was in Minnesota, so there's Minnesota nice.
True.
That is true. The other thing is, and Kier, this real quick, then we got to let you go because I want you to tell everybody where you're going for Fox. In fact, I'm going to skip the question. Tell us who you're going to be on with on Thursday night. They can find it online on Twitter because you're going to tweet it, and so will the host that's filling in on Fox Primetime on Thursday night as they're watching the show on Saturday. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, so on Thursday night, I will be on Fox Primetime with Lawrence Jones. He's the host this week, and we're all big fans of Lawrence here, of course. And we'll be talking about, I don't know, are you guys planning to talk about this story after I leave? We're talking about, so far, because sometimes he's changed it at the last minute, but so far we're going to talk about that mother in Atlanta who found out that the teachers were segregating the classrooms. So yeah, right. It's like I haven't met one person who has not completely rolled their eyes over that. So we're definitely going to be discussing that because I wrote about that over at Red State yesterday and it got huge reaction. obviously, for obvious reasons, all day long. You can tune into my Twitter account at Real Kira Davis. I'll be posting clips from the show if you miss it. Or of course, you could just make sure that you are in front of Fox News every single night around 7 p.m. your time, just in case I'm going to be on. I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot, but if you're a serious Kira Davis fan, I think it's something you'll consider doing. Or you can just, tune into my YouTube channel also for the clips. But I hate to abandon you guys so early, but I have every confidence that you all will be able to carry on the conversation without my lovely, melodic, not at all annoying voice.
I thought you almost said something that was also, never mind. I'm going to let it go. There's so many different things that I just, Kira, we love you.
Thank you guys.
Enjoy Fox News. You all check her Twitter feed and catch up to her then. We will see you next week, ma'am.
All right. See you guys later. You guys enjoy the rest of the show.
So, yeah.
So with that said, she's talking about the whole controversy in Atlanta, and I wasn't going to bring it up because it kind of goes down the path where you are, Jeff, as well. This ridiculous nature of, okay, we're going a little bit too far. In this instance, they're segregating the classrooms. I've heard of people doing this with Civil War enactments to kind of get kids to understand the dynamics of race, so they have to make the black person a slave. The one black person in the class has to be the slave, as if kids can't understand what slavery is. Or they're doing these type of dynamics. Again, we heard about the blue-eyed experiment where everybody was treated differently because they had blue eyes. They couldn't figure it out. But why must we do this so far, so often, to try to illustrate a point that with some proper teaching and some hands-on techniques, maybe we don't have to cross these lines?
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, the more left-leaning types don't care. I mean, this is just one story. I mean, we've had stories popping up of teachers being subjected to this treatment where they have exercises where teachers are separated by skin color, or even students are separated by skin color. They may not have gone as far as this school did in Atlanta, where they just straight up had black and white classrooms, but they are injecting these elements in our classrooms and in other areas of American society, and a lot of them know it, which is why they promote that Jim Crow 2.0 narrative about the Voting Rights Act. It's like Joseph Goebbels said, always accuse your enemy of that which you are doing. So they're accusing Republicans of wanting to disenfranchise black voters and bring back Jim Crow. Meanwhile, they've got their own in these classrooms, putting on these exercises that are designed to and again, I've said this before, this isn't most classrooms, most teachers aren't doing this, but this is how they and some of them mean well. I mean, I listened to Kira's podcast, just listened about this, and they actually thought that they were doing a good thing. They may have even been basing this on some studies that suggest that black students do better with black teachers. I've seen that data out there, and I get it. At the same time, if you're a government school, if you're any kind of school, you don't base on skin color. You don't designate certain classrooms or certain whatever for people based on the color of their skin. It's absolutely absurd, and the fact that this isn't getting more attention is very telling. The fact that the media is ignoring this is absurd, because if this had happened at a white school in a Georgia suburb, they would be blowing this up, and it's wrong no matter who does it. And in this case, this was a black administration at the school that was doing this.
Dr. Metzler, why can't we get issues of race right? I mean, we've had a black president, we've had black governors, we've had black mayors, we've had black millionaires, we've had black sports heroes. We have had more interracial marriages in the last 10 years than we had probably in the previous 50 years combined. Why are we still so screwed up on figuring out this race thing in America?
Because, in fact, I'm not sure that Americans want to figure it out. Look, people have an agenda on either side of this issue. They're not willing to really figure out what is real, what is not. And as it relates to this particular teacher, your job, ma'am, is to educate. It is not to spread propaganda. And the fact that you would do that causes more trauma than anything else. If you are, in fact, an educator, you know how to educate. You know how to get that message across without this colored white thing that you have going on. Listen, we have articulated race as a social construct. We continue to re-articulate race on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, let's go back to Bill Clinton had this race conversation. What happened? Nothing. Obama had the beer summit. What happened? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to have all of these silly conversations about race, and those conversations are not at all about race. They are, in fact, just simply propaganda to make people feel better about how they're dealing with the issue of race. And until we're ready to deal with it and to talk about it in context, not blaming one side or the other, this is going to continue. And by the way, there's great profit in the race business as well on all sides of the issue. So since there is profit, why not profit from it? The theory and the practice goes.
So let me ask this question to you guys. Is there one string that we could start pulling to finally untangle this ball of yarn when it comes to race? Is the economic? Some people think it's the economic, string of yarn. Some people think it's education. Some people think it's politics. We have taken bites of the apple from different perspectives. Maybe it's not been as big of a bite of the apple as what we needed to have taken. But is there anything, and I'll start with you, Dr. M, as the smart person amongst the three of us, is there any one piece of thread that we can pull that'll finally start unraveling this in the right way versus unraveling as a society as we continue to do one race time and time again?
Well, it starts with honest education. See, this is the problem. The conversation about race is not an honest conversation. It is an agenda-driven conversation on all sides of the issue. It is, let's say, I don't want to offend you. Yes, I'm offended. Oh, let's say the most outrageous thing and see if people are offended. Look, until we get to the bottom line as to what vestiges of race exists in systems in the United States, for example, issues of redlining, banking, those kinds of things. Until we get to what the real issues of race are and stop trying to put all this window dressing and profiteering on it, we are going nowhere.
And Jeff, it's interesting because we were talking about the Minnesota situation prior to this, right? And, one of the things that can help Black people more than not labeling the biggest bedroom the master bedroom, which, by the way, Kira kept talking about the big bedroom, I kept thinking Chris Rock, the big piece of chicken, and I just didn't. But, with that said, one of the things that would help Black people more than renaming some piece of real estate away from using the word master would be deregulation in the banking market that would help bring back community credit unions, that would help more Black people own homes, which would give them equity where they can call the bedrooms whatever the heck they want, versus what transpired after 2008, 2009, where all that regulation basically killed the smaller banks that were more inclined to lend to poor Black people in urban environments and even in rural areas where they needed the cash flow the most.
Yep, that would do far more for the Black community than master bedroom. I mean, Jay-Z and Will Smith are working on something like what you just described. And there are Black people who are working to use free market solutions to benefit the Black community. I tend to write about it quite a bit. But the thing is, racism, it's profitable. Like Dr. Metzler just said, it is profitable. The left uses it as a weapon. They don't want to do anything about racism. They don't want to do anything about these disparities. They can exploit it as a weapon. So they don't have any incentive to actually fight against it. On the right, so the left now, but the right avoids it like the plague. And if anything, they will even elevate pundits who use racial language that goes right up to that line to where they can say, "Oh, well, I didn't say that because I'm racist." They're like, you know how they do. I mean, they've been doing it for years, and they'll elevate Black faces on the conservative movement to do that. But other than that, they don't really want to have this conversation on race. They want to pretend it's not an issue. They want to pretend that racism does not have an impact in 2021 just because it's not the same as what it was in 19. Sides want to lie to us about it. Both sides gaslight us about it. And by the way, it's not everybody on both sides. It's these fringe people. It's the people who have the microphone. Take the microphone away from them. That's the only way that we can actually get to some type of solutions. You got to have adults in the room who can have these conversations without going to either extreme, and they need the microphone. The problem is that a lot of rank and file people don't realize what's going on. They don't see under the surface. So when their favorite pundit, or if you're on the left and Ben Crump says racism or America is irredeemably racist, a lot of times we just let that get into our brains without really thinking about it because we're going on trying to pay our bills, we're trying to work and what have you. And then on the right, if your favorite pundit says that every problem that the Black community has is due solely to Black culture, then if you don't know Black people like that, you just believe it. And the problem is that the officers on both sides play on our ignorance, and they play on the fact that not everybody actually lives in politics to where they're actually studying a lot of this stuff. The way to remedy that is to put people in those influential positions who actually want to have honest conversations. And right now, the powers that be don't want to do it. And who benefits from it?
Let me ask this question, because this is what's interesting to me, right? So it seems as though we're living in a time where the races have never been more amalgamated in some regards because of all the interracial marriages that you've seen over the last 20 to 25 years, because of technology shrinking the world, because of the fact that you got Instagram and cultures and everything blending. You've heard more about alternate lifestyles from a sexual standpoint and a lifestyle standpoint than you ever did before. Couple that with the fact that you've had the first African-American president, and you've had all these different people represented. We're starting to see Native American members of tribes representing people in their communities in Congress. And yet, the biggest talking points, guys, and I'll go to Dr. Metzler, then you, Jeff, and we'll move on to Dr. Dre real quick before we get out of here. We're talking more about segregated classrooms and critical race theory and all this other jazz more than we did 10 years ago, or out there, say 2007, before Obama. We weren't talking about race like this. And since then, we've had everything from George Zimmerman to Ferguson to Freddie Gray in Baltimore to CRT to all this other jazz, while we have a generation of Americans that have seen race completely different than any of its predecessing generations, Dr. Metzler. How do we explain that?
Well, we're talking about it, but we're doing nothing about it. All we're doing is having all this fodder conversation. Who can say the most outrageous thing relative to that? It is simply more talk, just talk about none of these things that actually make a difference. And so as people spend all this time talking about critical race theory, about all of this other stuff, at the end of the day, we are more divided than we were previously. So all of this discussion has led to what? More and more division. That's where we are. And until that changes, nothing is going to change.
Jeff, what say you before we jump off of this?
I mean, I'm just going to piggyback off of what Dr. Metzler said. I mean, there are too many people who benefit from having racial tensions be so hot. Even sure how would even do this, but those people need to be held accountable. We need better people in those positions, people who actually, care about America, who care about Black Americans, white Americans, Native Americans, and or what have you. I think it's going to take what I call, or what's been called, the exhausted majority, according to the hidden tribe study. It's going to take them getting sick of it. And at some point, and that's why I always say I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, because I do think it'll get better. And I think part of the reason it will is because that's just what's going to happen. Like, people would be like, you know what? I don't want to fight. I don't want to keep fighting anymore. I don't mind debate, but this whole, thing where we have to hate each other, it's stupid. It's either going to go that way, or we're going to have like that national divorce that people keep talking about that I really don't think is going to happen. I think it's just going to, there's going to be a time where people say, I want to get back to having civil conversations. I want to actually solve these problems. And the people that are in charge in the media and in our government aren't doing anything. So let's figure this out. And I got people on the left and the right who are saying that, who have been saying that over the past few years. And that conversation is becoming more prevalent from what I'm saying. So I do think it's going to get to that point.
All right, so I'm going to let it rest here because we can dive into this for another 15 minutes, but I'm not going to do that. But I do want to dive into this because we're all dads and we all love our children and we all have daughters. So when you sit here and you hear the story about Dr. Dre, who apparently has a homeless daughter, who he is no longer helping out financially, and then there's rumors as to why he's doing it. It's because she reported a story on him, and there's other people that say it's because she's wasted the money previously, or maybe it goes back to who her mom is, whatever the case may be. You have this discussion that's been going on over the last couple of weeks, which is, at what point in time does a parent who has the means, let's ignore the fact how much he's worth, let's just say you have the means, at what point in time does a parent look at a child that's grown and say, I can't help you no more? Whether that's they're doing the right thing or they're not doing the right thing, and it's clear one way or another, or it's that gray area in between. And Dr. Metzler, because I flipped a coin and I think you're older than Jeff and me, I'm going to let you go first, but only because I flipped a coin to determine that.
Well, it's at the point where the parent determines that it is no longer productive. Listen, she is a grown-ass woman. She needs to get a job. It's very simple to me. I don't understand what the controversy is all about. What, does he have to support her for the rest of his life? He has made the decision that he should no longer support her. We don't know what the reason is, but that's completely his choice and his decision to make. She's a grown-ass woman. Get a job.
Jeff, she's homeless. I mean, there's the flip side of it. It's like, she's homeless. You're rich. Can't you help a sister out for a second? And again, to Dr. Metzler's point, if you can't help yourself, or at least you're not making the effort to help yourself, then what are you going to do? But when you have the means that Dr. Dre has, you can kind of see where people are coming from, right?
Yeah, I see where people are coming from. And this one is hard because I don't know the history. Why is she homeless? What's going on here? Like, is homeless by choice or because she was irresponsible? Has she been homeless before because she was irresponsible? What's going on here? Like, if it's the case to where she just wants to mooch off of him and she doesn't want to do what she needs to do to get out of that situation, then I understand. And that's tough because I do have daughters and I can't think of a scenario under which I wouldn't help them if they were homeless. So, but at the same time, I don't know his situation and I can't judge. At a certain point, I agree with Dr. Metzler said. What Dr. Metzler said. I mean, if it's not going to be productive, if by helping her he's actually her, then I totally understand that situation. And for me, it would have to be a situation where they're just not even trying to do for themselves. But if they're actually trying and maybe they need some help, I mean, that's what family is for. That's what parents are for. But if it's a case to where she clearly just wants to do nothing with her life and just live off of her dad's wealth, then I could see why he would cut her off.
Well, and so this is where parenting comes into play, right? So, you got to ask the question, what is the better parenting move? Because we have to assume, everybody wants to assume it's because he doesn't love his daughter. But if you love your child, and you know that if I give my child another $50,000 and they're living in a car and her kids are living someplace else, and it might go in her veins, it might go up her nose, it might go to somebody that's going to use her because they know who she is, it might get wasted on another, get rich quick scheme, whatever the case may be, and you're trying to parent your child away from danger, do you hand them the poison that can actually end up killing them? And that's what this is one of the questions, Dr. Metzler. I don't know if enough people are asking, whether it's Dr. Dre, and again, it's high profile because it's Dr. Dre, but let's take a couple of 3 or 4 the zeros off the end of the amount of what his net worth is, it's still the same fundamental question. If you're look, let's go back to Gator. Everybody remembers Gator, right? From Spike Lee back in the early 1990s. Ruby Dee's character kept giving Gator the money until one day Gator was there still in the TV. At what point of time, and this is when Wesley Snipes got all up in the business, at what point in time do you cut Gator off before Gator gets himself or somebody else hurt? You know, this is the same fundamental question. And I don't know if it's, you know, people try to make this out to be a black issue, Dr. Metzler, but this ain't a black issue. This is a parenting issue in modern America, if not the modern society.
Yeah, I mean, this is a parental issue. And look, again, I don't know the situation. I do know, however, that it's up to the parent to decide. The parent knows what is happening. Does the parent want to enable this? I don't know. But I would say if it were my child, and at some point when I determine that this is no longer productive, and you have the skills to do whatever it is you need to do, then you need to get a job. I am not here to support you for the rest of your life. And that becomes the issue. It's not a black issue. It's really a parenting issue.
And isn't this, Jeff, the whole analogy of everybody prays to God and God answers all prayers, but sometimes the answer is no. And it's for your own good because God knows more than anybody else. I mean, isn't this kind of the same vein, but it's Dr. Dre, which, look, let's just be honest, Jeff. The whole connotation of Dr. Dre and NWA is still in the mix in regards to how people are viewing the situation. He's doing something through the lens of a 51, 52-year-old man. And some of the people looking at this story, Jeff, they're still judging him through the purview of, you know, late 80s, early 90s Jerry Curl talking about B's and H's all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be irrational to look at him through that lens because that's obviously not who he is anymore. He's way past that now. And this is a parenting decision, not really a financial decision. He's doing what he thinks is going to help his daughter. Like I most likely, again, I don't know the whole situation, but it sounds to me like he is doing what is in his daughter's best interest, even if she doesn't see it that way. He has decided that continuing to help her is not helping her. So maybe this does need to be that wake-up call. Maybe this will lead her to a place where she says, you know what, I do need to get myself out of this situation. I do need to take these steps. And then maybe at that point, maybe he will start to help her because now he's seeing that she's trying to do what needs to be done. Now, and that's assuming that there's no other factors here that I don't know about. Their relationship could be estranged. I don't know what's going on here, but it is a decision that parents have to make.
So this is where having Mrs. Davis on the show always makes this fun because this has a gender element to it that I'm just going to throw out there amongst three fathers, which would be interesting to see what this dynamic is like without a mother being on the line. This is his daughter, right? Does that color people's opinion on whether or not he should be helping versus, because I'd have to imagine that most of society be like, oh, you know, your 35-year-old son, yeah, man, busted, go get a job. But when it's your daughter and she's a mother and she's a single mother, it pulls on the heartstrings a little bit. Now, I will say that the Kurt Franklin situation where he jammed up his son a couple of months ago, most people were like, his son's a grown man. He stepped to his daddy. What did he expect was going to happen? But there were still some people like, yeah, that's still your baby. That's still your child. But we seem to have a different approach, Dr. Metzler, when it comes to people and their sons going through this as adults versus their daughters going through this as adults.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a gender element relative to this because I think probably most people, if it was a boy, would say, bruh, get a job. I mean, you know, but when it comes to the fact that it's a daughter, there's a certain amount of, well, yeah, I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. I think maybe you should have more heart. So there is a gender element of that as well.
What do you think, Jeff? I mean, again, is this something that's pulling at your heartstrings a little or making you at least have pause because it's his daughter versus, you know, Dre Jr.?
I think so. I think that just in general, people are more sympathetic towards girls than boys, and to some extent, I think that's okay. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, I mean,
whoa. Why do you think it's an okay thing? I thought, again, we're here about equality. So if you got a struggling son and a struggling daughter, all things are equal.
Men and women are different. Men and women are different, and it's okay to have a different approach to either. But
tell me why.
Tell
me why, Jeff, because that's where this starts getting funny. Tell me why it's okay to have that difference, because if you're talking about equality, it doesn't seem like it should be different.
Well, but that's the thing. It's not, to me, I reject the premise that it isn't about equality. It's about difference. I mean, and there's a reason why, say, a husband has a role and a wife has a role. There's a difference why these roles exist, and we can argue about whether they're biological, they're social constructs, or mixes of both.
Whatever.
But at the same time, we have a tendency to want to protect women more than we want to protect men. That's just the way it is. And and like I said, I think it's okay. Women are physically weaker than men in general. Now, in this situation, though, yeah, if it had been his son, I would have the same position. I can't say that my position would change. I'd probably be a little bit more harsher about it with the man, but that's just the way society is. And again, I don't really see much wrong with it.
Dr. Metzler, I'm going to give you the last word, because we stumbled upon equality, equity, differences, separate but equal when it comes to a situation like this, when it comes to adult kids based on your gender. And we didn't even approach the other aspect of where this comes in, which is a mother going through this versus a father going through this.
Well, but I think Jeff is right. I mean, look, in this particular issue, it just kind of is what it is. I don't believe that it's about equality. I do believe it is the way that we look at women needing more protection than we do men. The way that we look at the roles of a husband versus the role of a wife. I really don't see anything wrong with that.
Let's leave it there. We're going to have to do something like this with Kara on the line next time. And usually she's here and she's usually looking at me and wagging her finger and saying that I'm the troublemaker. And that's usually because I am the troublemaker on this show. So I embrace that role, but I miss her being here. And I want to, make sure, number one, you all check out her Twitter feed. I'm sure she has clips from Thursday night's show on there. She always does a wonderful job, as do these two fine gentlemen when they get on national television. Let me start with you, Dr. Metzler. Are you doing any TV this week? What do you have going on?
No TV. I'm staying away from TV largely because I'm just over political commentary. I'm
as he's wrapping up the show on Red Black.
Right,
well, Red and Black is different, though. Red and Black is different. I'm just over all of this. Who's yelling the loudest, and I'm tired of that. So not doing any of that. Living Beyond the Realm, of course. We're really ratcheting that up to have a talent component. In that talent component, we will soon be offering some one-on-one with some folks who are able to serve on publicly traded boards for compensation, because we don't believe that that's offered to enough people. We'll be doing that soon, and we'll roll out in DC in September. So more to come on that.
That sounds fantastic. That's empowerment, folks, not the punditry. Even the punditry has its place, but punditry and empowerment are not always the same exact thing. But I do want to go to one of my favorite pundits, which is Jeff Charles. What do you got going on this week?
Yeah, so I still got my podcast going on, A Fresh for Jeff Charles. I'll be dropping another audio podcast. I still have my live streams on Tuesday and Friday evenings at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard. And on Friday, you can go ahead and check this out, Fox Soul. It will have already happened, but I'm guest hosting on the Tammy Mack Late Night Show. And I'm actually going to be filling in a few more times over the next couple months. So I'll keep you guys notified on that.
So you're guest hosting? So you're like, you are Tammy Mack?
No, well, I'm one of her guest hosts on her show.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, if you're guesting, I'm like, okay. But that's all right. Look, For those of you that don't know Fox Soul, you can get the app. I have it on my Roku. It comes on midnight Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific. It's good television. Jeff always does a good job when he's on there. So tune in to him. You said it was Friday night, so there's going to be a replay of that, right?
Yeah, it'll be on replay. So if you go to Fox Soul and look up at the Tammy Mac show, then you'll see me.
Dig it. Listen, folks, I told you, folks are always doing good things here on Red and Black, Dr. Metz. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Kira, keep rocking. We'll catch up to you next week. Of course, find us here. Spread the word. We're going to be expanding a lot of different things that we're working on here over the next several weeks. We're going to change a little bit of the backgrounds. We're going to change a little bit of the technology, and we're expanding where we're going to be available. So stay tuned, spread the word, subscribe, and keep yourself safe and blessed always. In the meanwhile, you enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you soon. TCNGB, take care and God bless y'all.
Yeah.
Peace.